Hello there and welcome to day 2 of the Pain-Free Breakthrough Challenge. So before I start today's lesson, I just want to remind you that if you share your insights from the daily tasks on Facebook over the 4 days, then you'll be in with a chance to win free access to my Pain-Free Breakthrough program, okay? Which is my signature program, and it's where I really get you to go into the deep work involved in chronic pain recovery and healing. So yeah, just share your tasks using the hashtag PFB Challenge Day 2, Day 3, whatever, and you'll be in a chance of winning free access. So today, I want to address certain objections that keep people back from actually approaching their chronic pain or symptoms from a mind-body perspective. Because it's amazing how these objections really cloud all possibilities. And there are so many people who do not properly look into this approach just because they have similar objections. So I'm just going to dive into them straight away. Keep an open mind, please, and just consider how these things might apply to your own situation. So I often get asked, but Miriam, what if my MRI or scan has shown disc herniations, osteoarthritis, or some form of abnormality or degeneration? Then how can my pain be caused by the brain or by emotional factors? So this is what I wanted to address today. So basically, there has been plenty of research actually showing that certain structural abnormalities, especially in the spine and the neck and the knees, do not necessarily correlate to the pain experience. So for example, in one study showed that there was no difference in the incidence of low back pain in people with and without osteoarthritis of the spine. So how often do people go to the doctor in pain and then the doctor says, okay, no, yeah, you have osteoarthritis. This is what's causing all your pain. How true is that really if there are hundreds and thousands of other people with osteoarthritis who are not in pain? And this is a fact. There are hundreds and thousands of people who have a similar degeneration or a disc herniation or osteoarthritis who are not in pain, okay? So just because your MRI or scan identifies something that's not quite perfect with your body, it doesn't mean that that is exactly what's to blame for your pain. Especially if your pain tends to move around, for example, or tends to be inconsistent. Doesn't really make sense. Okay, so another study on back pain found that 64% of participants were found to have structural pathologies in the spine. So basically there were 98 people with no back pain, and 64% of them actually had some form of abnormality, some form of degeneration in the spine, okay? This clearly shows that just because you have these abnormalities, these things that are not quite perfect, it doesn't mean that you're going to suffer from back pain all your life, okay? So further studies have found structural pathologies of the spine and back pain to be coincidental, okay? They're just coincidental. Unless there is something serious like a tumor that's pressing on a nerve, okay? And this is why MRIs are done as well, to exclude really life-threatening conditions, okay? So unless there is something serious like a tumor, an infection, okay? Most structural pathologies of the spine, most abnormalities, should not be causing the intense pain you might be experiencing, okay? And another interesting fact is that almost 1/3 of healthy 20-year-olds have a disc protrusion, okay? Almost 1/3. The numbers increase with age up to 43% at the age of 80. So almost half of the people without low back pain have a herniated disc, basically. So having a herniated disc is actually normal and it increases with age. It really has nothing to do with how much pain you're gonna suffer. So some people just have herniated discs and they're just not aware of it. They're not in pain. Okay, so unless you've had a recent accident, a recent injury which caused the herniation, then of course it would hurt initially. So unless you've had something obvious, like an obvious accident recently, you shouldn't be in so much pain just because your MRI shows a disc herniation. Okay? So these are false beliefs that we carry around, false information that we get sometimes from medical practitioners, okay, who are keen on giving us a reason behind our pain, which is really not the whole truth, unfortunately. And that keeps a lot of people stuck, because then they assume that there's nothing else that they can do. They assume that the mind-body approach won't apply to them, which is a pity, really, because if they do try it out, then they start seeing results. So today, I'd just like to encourage you to start asking the right questions, okay? You don't have to say like, oh, yeah, what Miriam is saying is totally right or it's totally wrong. I'd just like you to think a little bit about your own situation and do a little bit of self-analysis, right? So, for example, let's say you think or used to believe that a disc herniation or some structural abnormality like scoliosis or whatever is causing your pain. Maybe you believe that there is something wrong with your body that's causing you pain. If so, why would you feel more pain or symptoms during times of intense anxiety or stress if your pain was simply due to a structural cause? So if you notice these correlations between stressful moments and having a pain flare up, how does that make sense? How does that tie into the idea that it's just a structural thing that's causing the pain? Why would you have multiple symptoms if you just had a disc herniation in one location? Why would you have symptoms maybe all over the body? Because some people do. There's no explanation for that, at least no structurally based explanation. Why would you be okay walking at home, but your pain flares up as soon as you step outside? So it's the case for some people, right? So some people are fine, let's say, walking around the house, but as soon as they start walking outside, the pain comes on. Or as soon as they go to the supermarket, it flares up even more. So it's kind of location dependent rather than activity dependent. Why would your flat foot be causing you pain now when you've likely had this for years and it never gave you any trouble before? And so we can replace flat foot with any other abnormality you've been diagnosed with, like scoliosis, herniation. If you've had it for a long time, why is it causing pain now? Or why has it been causing pain only for the past year or two when you've had it maybe all your life? Does that make sense? Okay? None of us is perfect in the body. We all have imbalances, okay? So just because you have been diagnosed with, let's say, a muscle imbalance or a weak core, it doesn't mean that that's the cause of your pain. Almost everyone who doesn't exercise much has a weak core, but not everyone's in pain, okay? So it's good to start questioning yourself. Just because you've been told this, it doesn't mean that that particular issue is actually the cause of your pain or flare-ups. And final question, why did your pain go away or diminish when you were on holiday maybe, or when you were working from somewhere else? So basically, this is also very common. Some people have some really good days. Maybe they go on holiday. Maybe it gets worse, but maybe sometimes it disappears, okay? Maybe your pain just disappears when you're around certain people, but it gets worse when you're around other people, or when you're at work, or vice versa. It works differently for different people, depending on the situation. But the point behind these questions is to look for some inconsistencies in the way that your pain or symptoms manifest. Does it make sense to blame the pain on a structural condition that you permanently have? Like if you have arthritis, this is always present, right? It's there in the body all the time. So why would you have a really, really painful day and then maybe for a week or so you were feeling fine? The arthritis was still there. It didn't just disappear. It doesn't just come and go, okay? These things don't come and go. What changes and fluctuates is actually our own emotional state. Our mood, our feelings, okay? This is what changes so rapidly sometimes. And this is why we tend to experience flares or pain-free days, depending on our emotional state, actually. Okay, so I'll be looking into this more tomorrow. Today, I'd just like you to ask yourself these questions, okay? And there's also a task which will be detailed in underneath the video in the description, which will get you to question some of your beliefs, because it really does start with questioning certain beliefs that you've held and which may not necessarily be true. And you question these based on your observation. In your case, not in anyone else's case. It doesn't matter what happened to your aunt or to your grandma or whatever. In your case, the way the symptoms manifest, does it justify you believing that their origin is due to a certain thing, due to a certain structural cause, okay? Do you believe that your body is weak and this is why you're in pain? So I just encourage you to question these beliefs and to share your insights in the comments. Okay, that's all for today, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.